What's going on, guys? 22nd of March, getting closer to the wind down of another month. And this week, we talked about the Fed coming out, them making their statement on what the plan was going to be at the rates, and they left it unchanged, which was anticipated by myself, anticipated by a lot of people because of what we saw with the CPI, with PCE, with other inflation readings showing that the inflation is not under the control to the extent that they need it to be for them to be able to lower rates. And why does that have to happen? So again, for those who don't quite know, the reason that the Fed raises rates is because they're trying to increase the cost of operating, living, all these things enough to slow people down, stop spending. They want to, and when they get that point where people have slowed down, stop spending, then they bring the rates down to kind of keep the market moving. Then people start, if it slows down too much, then the market comes to a halt. So they need to slow it down enough to where just keeping a low, light amount of inflation. Now, the target's been 2%. Why is it 2%? Well, 1996, you had a meeting with, Alan Greenspan, Janet Yellow's in the room. There were some others that were part of the Fed. And it was a Federal Open Market Committee meeting, and they were talking about what's their target for inflation. They didn't even have a target at that moment. Just Greenspan said, well, it'd be good if it was zero inflation, but we know that's not reasonable. And so Yellen said, let's go for 2%. And he said, well, how do we even judge 2%? Well, they came up with a way to do that, and they knew that that would even be not even a flawed method anyway. There's no real way for them to calculate a true 2% inflation. So all they do is look at specific things. That's where you get these indexes, and that's what they're going to go off of to the best of their ability. They're going to raise rates, lower rates to try and move the throttle on the economy, either going faster or going slower, depending upon how hot things are getting. They want to keep the cost of living where it's not getting out of hand for us. But we as consumers are getting it out of hand ourselves. We are literally overbuying. And because we're overbuying, we're pushing the price of things up. We also have a supply issue. Since COVID, supplies became a massive issue. Now we also have that same thing going on with housing. I'm looking at, see here, I just clicked on my a browser. I don't like using, what is this? This is the new, it's Microsoft Edge. I don't like that browser, but I clicked on that browser mistakenly the other day, and this came up. Like, interesting. She's saying what I'm saying. Now is the best time to buy a house. Because when you read this article in great depth, you start to understand that it's not about the interest rates. It's not about the cost. It's the fact that you're not going to get an opportunity at this. Also, there's a lot of people that are scared of not jumping in and buying houses because of what's going on. So you have a better shot today at being able to get a house than if the rates do go down and push a lot of people into the market, start buying. It's going to push those costs up. We're at a point right now, I think we're at a point where costs are only going to go up. That's just how it looks to me. With the current market conditions, let's get into the charts here. This is kind of going slow. Okay, here we are. So we had a pretty rough day yesterday. So we had what the Fed had to say. It held really well yesterday. Didn't do as well, but it still was in a higher position, right? We got to this point where we held this support. We were below the support during the day. We came off of moving averages. Those acted as support. Then this morning we opened up on support. I think we're going to maintain that support. We maintain that. We might see some slight improvement, but look, we have these moving averages that are hopefully going to act as that for a while, but it's still going to be a downward run. Look at that. We got that 200-day that's pointing downward. I think we're going to continue to use that as a downward pressure. We're going to continue to have downward pressure, I think, for the long haul. If we look at this, continued downward pressure. All I moved my channel here. All the upward hit that line that we referenced, the point that was the pricing back in 2008. That's our stopping point. It's going to push us back down to follow this trend, I believe, meaning our interest rates are going to continue to kind of creep up over time. We may see blips of improvement, right? We can go down and then probably blip up. So you might catch some of those, but it's going to be so broad and so wide, it's hard to catch it. So if you're a floater and one says, hey, I'm going to check and see what the market does for me tomorrow or the next day or next week, I think you're at risk. You're putting yourself at pretty significant risk. There's enough going on that would put pressure for the rates to come down. If you saw what happened there, we didn't have enough for it to really have a definitive big upward movement. So as a result of it, we're still seeing some negative pressure. I'm going to stay in lock mode, continue to stay in lock mode. And if people are telling you need to float into something else, I think they're nuts. I think they're just giving you hope to keep you on the line, to keep you stuck to them, instead of just telling you lock it. because they don't like the conversation that happens if it goes the opposite direction. If they say lock it and the rates do go down a little bit, they don't want that conversation to take place where they were wrong. But now if they tell you to float it, they're going to be wrong and it's going to be more expensive for you. If you can take the payment as it sits, if your investment property will pay for itself as it sits, don't chase that interest rate. Don't put you in that risk where you can't take that payment and then you can't buy that property and the rents are not going to cover it. Don't do that. Don't put yourself in that spot. Appreciate you guys. We will talk to you on Tuesday.